Recording started, and then I'll let you.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
Okay, you're all set.
Terrific. So Little Compton Zoning Board will come to order. We're coming via Zoom due to the governor's mandates. I'd like to first of all call a roll to see who's here. Mr. Berndorf.
Here.
Mr. Case.
Here.
Mr. Ryan.
Here.
Mr. Goulart. Mr. Goulart.
He was to be absent this evening.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Eddy.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Yeah.
Mr. Focarelli.
Yeah.
Terrific. We're also joined by attorney Allison Quay, who's our attorney, and by Carol Wardell, who brings us to you, the town clerk, and by our administrative assistant, Edie Marion, and our court reporter, Nancy from Allied. So Mr. Eddy will have a vote tonight to make up for Mr. Goulart. First order of business is to review the minutes of the last meeting. Does anyone have any changes or comments that they wish to make about the minutes? Hearing none, then I would move that we approve the minutes.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say, asking to receive the letter that I wrote.
Yes, we have. We'll get to that next.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Is there a second? I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Thanks, Mr. Hall. And let me call a roll. Mr. Berndorf.
Yes.
Mr. Case.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan.
Yes.
Mr. Eddy.
Approve.
No.
Approve.
Approve. I'm sorry. Mr. Hall. Charlie, do you approve the minutes?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And Mr. Focarelli.
Yes.
Great. So we're all approved. The first order of business is a continuing matter from our last meeting, and it is the petition of Wilma Bruning and Lee Scott Chase with regard to a special use permit to operate a commercial kennel as provided for table of principal use regulations. You don't need to read more on it, do we, Tack? Do you think?
No, I think we should read into the record the letters from
Absolutely.
from the
Absolutely.
applicant and the abutter.
So I would like to read in first the letter from Ms. Brunig. And I'd like to have that. I'm not even sure we need to read it in, but I would like to have it submitted as Exhibit A. I think we should read it.
No, if you're putting it as an exhibit, that's fine.
Okay. And then we have a letter from Mr. LaFerriere, who's an abutter. And I move that we also put that in the record as Exhibit number B.
I don't have a copy.
Is that okay?
Come up there.
Okay, without objection. Ms. Bruning, would you like to start off by telling us what you've agreed to and as stated in your letter?
Okay. We are going to be much more attentive with the dogs with barking, and I think our neighbors can already see that we have been or hear that we have been. And we do bring the dogs indoors whenever they bark. We're out with them all the time now. We're not leaving them unattended. We also are not using a large area of the yard that abuts LaFerriere's land because we had not understood how the barking, Hank explained how it ricochets off the building, the new building we put in when they're out front. And so we've agreed to not leave dogs out there. We will use it for exercise when we are with them because that's our agility area. And they also won't be able to reach the road, which they didn't bark at just people, but they would bark at other dogs when people walk by with dogs. We're going to be planting evergreens. We have met with a local landscaper, and we are going to be putting in a row of probably cypress trees along Lefaria's land and another row along the front of the building. We met with him today, and that won't be able to happen until early spring for a combination of reasons, the heavy drought and the availability of him being able to come and do it. So we're going to continue to plant. We've already done a lot of planting on the north side, but we're going to continue to plant now more in the front. We're using bark collars, and I did write in here that if the abutters wanted to appoint a spokesperson, someone who could call me and we could periodically review how the neighbors were feeling, if the barking was under control enough and so on, I would be happy to do that. I'd rather talk with one person about like periodically than take calls from different people, but either way works, because I'm also willing to supply my cell phone number and email if people would like to contact me, particularly if there has been barking. I'd like to know. I think I wasn't aware of how much it was affecting people, and I really want to correct that. And the other items were what we had gone over last week. The dogs live in our house. The building, Hank came over and saw it. It's not a kennel at all, our new building. It's a workshop for my husband. It's actually primarily a dog-free zone, to be totally honest. It's where he gets away to. And then, they live in our house. I would like to keep 8 adult dogs here. Once our 11 begin to age out, I would hit a happy medium of 8. That would allow me to keep my older dogs, keep 1 or 2 young ones coming along, and then keep a few breeding dogs. And if I'm granted the kennel license, I'll be able to get the Rhode Island breeder's license, which then opens me up to inspections from the state. If there's any, I don't know if they do yearly, they may do yearly inspections. I'm not really sure what their schedule is. And then, of course, if there's ever a problem, they're here right away, I'm sure. They're kind of like, I'm not sure. I think they're part of the health department, but I'm not sure on that. And if anybody else wanted to visit and see our place, I'm more than happy to show it to them. You can see how the dogs live, how they're taken care of, what they eat, how they're trained, and so on. So that's what I wrote in my letter.
Great, thank you very much. If I could just ask, the total number of adult dogs would be how many?
The adult dogs now, or the adult dogs that
you foresee over the next year?
Over the next year, it would stay at 11 unless one of my older ones passes away.
Okay, thanks. And Mr. LaFerriere, you've read the letter? Have you read the letter?
No.
I have not. I've never received a copy. I gave Wilma a copy of mine, but apparently she hadn't done it yet.
Okay, if you could comment on her proposals and whether or not you agreed to them.
I'm sorry about that.
The only goal I have, my goal, the goal of neighbors I've talked to as well, is quiet. And it has been better since we had our conversation. I quote Taketti in the last meeting, where dogs make noise. So at some point, last time we talked about, I think 6 and 8, and maybe something in that range we talked about, but we never came to any. That's when we decided to come back to this meeting. But we didn't really, we never get down to that level of it. I mean, I say, 6 dogs is a lot of dogs. I mean, she doesn't think it's a lot of dogs, but
Can you step back from the microphone a little bit? I'm having trouble hearing you because it's very loud.
well, I'm sorry. See,
Thank you.
you're all coming very, very soft, so
Okay.
that's better what's going on, I guess.
As long as it stays quiet.
So, as long as it's quiet, no concern. My concern is that more dogs, more noise, possibly. And then what's the consequences if it continues to have noise that people complain about on a regular basis? So those are my only comments. Otherwise, as I told her, people wouldn't care how many dogs she had if they didn't have to hear the barking. So I guess I left it in a sense at the end of my letter in the hands of the board to do what they see. A question of whether or not there's no regulation for number of pets and number of dogs. So it goes in that direction. It becomes an enforcement thing, making sure she doesn't sell puppies. And I don't know who's responsible for all of that. I don't want to be responsible for all of that. So if having a kennel, if we're have what we're looking for, in particular for our goal as neighbors, is to just quiet. If it's as quiet as it has been since Wilmer and Scott and I met, it's good. We are shutting our windows, so it's not likely to be as loud anyway, but I think they're finally realized that there's a need there. So that's my only goal. If it's quiet, she can do whatever the town thinks is okay for her to do. Again, more dogs is more likely to have more noise, but we'll have to wait that one out.
Okay.
I have some questions of Wilma when you're ready, Mark.
Okay, fine. Pat, go ahead.
Wilma, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
On the evergreens, how long a border are you proposing to plant between you and the LaFerrier property to the south?
It was estimated today as at 140 feet from the front of the property along our property line, and it'll overlap a little bit. Hank has, I think, 8 or 10 green giants, and so it would overlap those a little bit, like a few trees, and cut down on, basically give us a good block the whole way to the road.
And how high are the arborvitae or other evergreens that you propose?
We think they're gonna be, what kind of cypress was that?
It's a Leland cypress.
Leland cypress, and I believe they get about 20 to 30 feet. We really don't want to do green giants because they also are thinner. This is going to be a denser tree.
But how big a tree are you proposing to buy initially?
Excuse me?
How high a tree are you proposing to get?
Well, we don't know yet because we just had a chance to meet this morning.
Is 3 feet reasonable?
3 feet high?
Yes, to
Oh,
start.
they'll be taller than that.
Okay, so at least 3 feet.
Oh, at least 3 feet. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to wait 10 years for them to grow or 20 years. We want to they're going to be as big as I can afford to put in.
We want them to get closer to Henry's living. By Memorial Day, is that an acceptable time to have everything in?
I think so. I mean, on our end, it would be. Yeah, he was talking the end of March, right? The end of March is when the work would happen.
Oh,
Because we want to get them in nice and early so they can get the spring rain.
so mid-April, is that reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, Memorial Day might be better so that I'm not hounding him.
Okay.
I mean, they're going to be in as soon as I would have them in, but I would have them in 3 weeks if I could get someone to do it. But I just can't. You
No,
know,
you want to wait till spring. I get that. How about the planning in front? What are you proposing there
the
between?
planning in front will happen after the planning on the side, but we're hoping for that in the spring also. At the same time, and we're hoping for it all at the same time, but we're not the ones doing it. But we have a plan for the front, along the road also, and it would all be, we're hoping, all the same tree. So it would just
Are you
give us
proposing a row of cypress in the front, the way you are along?
Yep, a staggered row and a staggered row on the side.
And you've agreed that there would be no boarding of dogs, correct?
Absolutely not. Yeah, there's no boarding. I'm not interested in that.
And you've agreed that they'll wear bark collars. Do you have bark collars for every dog now? Or do you
We do, yes.
have one for every dog now?
I do probably have, yeah, I would say I have 8 or 9, and I do have 11 dogs, but there's a couple that don't bark. They don't ever have to wear a collar. They just don't bark.
And can you tell us about the number of litters? Can you agree to keep it to 3 or less per year?
No, I can't. It's not really in my control. Well, it's in my control, but you can breed a dog. There's 6 days a year you can breed a dog. One, they're about 6 months apart, and it's 3 days. So, and you don't know if a dog is pregnant for 30 days into the pregnancy, and you're also not able to control when those 3 days happen. They happen approximately 6 months apart. So you can't, like, I've had a whole year here where I didn't produce a litter because either the timing was off or something, something just didn't go right with the pregnancy. And then I had another year where I had 5 litters. I mean, I think regulating the amount of litters, I'm only going to have, right now I have 4 breeding age dogs. I don't breed them all every year. So, but I don't want to agree to something that I may say, gee, I didn't have a litter at all last year. I want to breed all 4 dogs this year. I think regulating the number of litters is not the way to do it, because it's too hit or miss. And a litter also can have 1 or 2 puppies in it, or it can have 9, 10, 11, but there's no guarantee you're going to get puppies when you breed a dog. And a lot of things can go wrong.
I thought your testimony at the last hearing was that you had 2 to 3 litters a year, and 3 was on.
I do, and there's 1 year I had 5 litters, yes, because I bred dogs because I hadn't had 1 litter the year before. I hadn't been able to produce 1 litter, so I bred all the dogs thinking I would probably get 2 litters if I bred 4 dogs first, and then I ended up with 5 litters that year. I had 4, and then I had 1 very late in the year.
That's all the questions.
That's not, and the puppies don't contribute to the noise. I mean, this is what I don't understand. The puppies have nothing to do with the noise problem.
But you're asking to keep them for 6 months, I believe, and then.
No, 16 weeks. Is when the puppies usually sell from here. Sometimes they go home at 8 weeks. More normally it's 9, 10, 11 weeks. They leave depending on when their home is ready for them. And when they, the people have enough time off. Some people use their vacation time. I work around people's schedules. A few times I've kept a puppy as long as 16 weeks. For someone who was traveling, who had a big trip planned. So I kept their puppy, but.
I would just leave it as it is.
Have you always moved all your puppies?
Yes, except the ones I have kept for my own personal breeding stock, yes.
That's all the questions I have, Mark.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaFerriere, do you accept Ms. Brenning's proposals?
It's all about the noise for us. So yes, if it continues to be as a low noise level as it has been, I'll be thrilled.
Okay, and Are you also agreed to, if, or someone else to be the point of contact for Ms. Bruning in terms of future discussions? Since you rose to the occasion this time.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I might not be in the neighborhood. I'm going back to Florida at some point, so I think thinking ahead, it's probably not wise to take that responsibility.
Okay.
Could ask
I
around.
could ask around and see if someone, maybe Stuart or someone across the street or whatever.
Terrific.
Okay, and I'll send a note to Carol.
And then I guess I would ask if other neighbors are present and want to, if they're prepared to accept the proposals of Ms. Bruning.
I do have Chad Valcourt, who has raised his hand to speak.
Okay, Mr. Valcourt?
Good evening. I have a couple of questions for some recommendations. If the approval happens, Woolman Scott will still have to abide by the noise ordinance in town. Am I correct?
Allison, what do you think? Our lawyer?
Yes,
I would say yes, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
they are obligated. That's just a part of the abide by the noise ordinance.
So the police have to enforce the noise ordinance?
Yes, generally the police do. If the board may consider that, putting, containment and noise on a special use permit, and then maybe the building official would monitor it as well. But if there's a noise violation, generally the police are called and they're the ones that enforce it.
My second thing is, I didn't see the letter that Wilma wrote for this meeting, but I would like to see a yearly revisit of the license if it does get approved, so that if there are noise complaints that don't address, then it can be revisited. And on that note, I know we spoke with Henry about a spokesperson. I don't mind being a spokesperson if Woman's fine with that.
That would be great.
Okay,
I would
I'm
like
easily, I'm easily reached, and I don't know if it's a good thing. I don't live there, but anybody can get a hold of me, and I can talk to Wilma.
So on the point of making a special use permit reviewable, the special use permit will run with the land. What happens is if she violates it, then it has to go to the building official, the zoning official, and then he enforces the conditions on the special use permit, either with a notice of violation or an injunctive review in the Superior Court. The board is generally not set out to yearly reviews of special use permits. It's just not how it
Okay. So
Doesn't the license, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So it's more on a case-by-case basis. If there's if someone says, "Oh, she's," I don't know, if she agrees to 5 litters and she sold 6, then that would be something that the building official would have to deal with. Okay.
Mr. Case?
Doesn't the license come up for renewal every year?
Her kennel license, if she had one of those, maybe every year. But this is a special use permit to have a kennel on the property, which is different. It's not issued by the zoning board.
Well, could we make her required to get a kennel license? And that way there would be a review?
Yeah, so I just have to double check the town code about a kennel license. Maybe actually Carol can answer that question, whether they have to come into the.
To renew a kennel license, there is no town council review. As long as they have met the limit of dogs that's been previously approved, and I have no complaints from the police chief. then
Carol, you
they're
need to be a little
automatic-
louder, I think.
sorry. There is an annual review, but the town council is not involved in that. So long as they've met their number of dogs and have not had a police chief complaint, then it's automatically renewed once the fee is paid.
Right, but at least there is some review and some oversight of it if we require it.
Yes.
In proposed conditions that I have written down, I have the zoning official inspecting the property twice a year. And so he wouldn't be sandbagged. I called him and he agreed to that.
Thanks, Tech. Okay, any other comments here? Okay, so we're acting on a petition. I think if we're ready to vote, we're acting on a petition. If the members want to speak among ourselves on a petition for a special use permit.
Mark,
Yes.
there is another resident that has their hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize there was anyone else here. Please, another neighbor, please speak.
Elsie or Bob?
I'm sorry.
Feet away from Wilma. You know, considering that the special use permit runs with the land, what if, and you know, we expect Wilma to operate her property responsibly and quietly.
I'm sorry. Can you identify yourself, please?
Bob Torsha.
Thank you.
So the special use permit runs with the land, and our expectation is Wilma will operate and handle the dogs properly. That special permit stays with that property, so someone else could come in and operate a kennel there.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I think this is a bigger consideration than we previously thought.
I thought last time when we talked about that, we had agreed that it wouldn't go with the land.
I guess what we're saying here is it does.
Yeah. Does anyone know
That to
whether?
me, I trust you, Wilma, and I think that'd be great, but I think it's a problem in a residential neighborhood. It's so tight to just issue a kennel permit that could go with the land forever. If Wilma sells her land and someone's looking for a place to have a kennel, they're you know, and they're not just hobby breeders, but they're scale breeder. I think we're putting something right in the middle of the residential area that has no business being here. I mean, it might be okay to be on a farm, out, you know, miles from anybody, but I don't feel like it's right in the middle.
Could we speculate or stipulate that it be just during the residence of Ms. Brooding and her husband?
Well, that'd have to be, does the special use permit go onto the deed?
Yeah, it goes with, I don't think you can stipulate that it runs when she sells. That's it's a little bit more complex legal question that we'd have to look into, but generally they all of these permit variances, they go with the land. So when they sell it, it goes with the property. All the conditions that you put on it would also go with it though.
Well,
Right,
one
but
of the,
I think the condition here, you know, the only condition that I think anybody's really worried about is noise. And the dogs have been much quieter lately. I can attest to that. But there's really nothing but calling the police, and then the dogs come out and they take their meters out and they say, oh geez, it's not exceeding the noise levels, and then they go. I mean, part of the reason she's going for the kennel as presented to the planning board was that the police and the zoning enforcement officer had said that these, you know, if you got these dogs and they're making noise and you're getting complaints, you need to get a kennel license, as if that somehow solves anything. So they're kind of two separate issues.
Yeah,
So what's our, I guess, what's Wilma Lee's, what's our,
Well, I mean, one thing is that there's not a kennel building here, and there's not really a building. I mean, not that many people want to breed dogs and keep them in their house. So it's not like, I mean, I would be happy to sign anything that takes it off of this land when we sell it. I just don't know how that, I don't know the ins and outs of that.
I
Right,
think you
so,
can add
so first,
anything to a deed.
no, so first of all, your recourse, part of the special use permit is that the dog noise does not become a nuisance.
Right.
Even if they're not above the noise level, you can complain to the zoning official. And at some level, it can become a nuisance. Second, her kennel license does not go to the next person who buys her home. They have to get a kennel license separate and apart, which is also, as Carol said, if there are police complaints and they're above their limit for litters, then they don't get a kennel license automatically. So there are a couple of areas of recourse
Well,
there.
I think that if we complain to the police, just a lot like the vineyard, if you complain to the police and they come out and they take their meter out and it's not breaking the law, then there is no complaint. Right? There is no complaint. If the dog's yapping and it doesn't make that threshold, then there is no complaint. So I think that's kind of an issue. It's not. They set a threshold for noise in the town for a reason, and that's what the police are going to respond to. I'm just wondering how we, if what goes on, how do we protect ourselves as neighbors, as landowners, to ensure the peaceful enjoyment of our property after Wilma leaves? If she leaves. Sorry, I'm talking like that, but
Can I address a question to Allison, Mark? Mark?
We
Allison?
lost Mark, yeah.
Yeah, he's not there. So address away.
If the applicants agree that any special use permit will be personal to them, and we put that in the decision which is recorded, what are your thoughts on that? In other words, if she's on the record, Wilmer and her husband are on the record agreeing that the commercial kennel will expire when they sell the property, move into a nursing home, whatever.
Oh, please.
So I'm not saying that you
Okay.
can't do that. I'm just saying I haven't researched that particular question to really tell you for sure that she or you have the authority to do that. Tack, you actually have much more experience in zoning than I do, so you might know the answer to that, but I haven't researched that enough at this point to tell you that if you say that would be binding on an owner.
My thought is it would be like a consent judgment, and a judge would normally run with whatever the parties agree to. So
Right.
I would suggest if the board wishes to grant the special use permit, that we include that as one of the conditions. And Wilma, would you agree to that?
Absolutely.
And is your husband handy?
He is. He's right here. He's hiding.
Hey, do you agree to that?
These dogs are the pets and they're not going to be in anybody else's kennel ever.
No, but they're saying,
When we're not doing dogs anymore, nobody's going to come in and do that.
And when you,
As far as I'm concerned.
even when you sell the property, there will be no commercial kennel after you sell it.
No.
right.
Okay, thank you.
This property is not going to be sold as a viable kennel for anybody else to run ever.
Thank you. Did Mark come back?
No.
No.
Mr. Valcourt, I believe you wanted to say something?
Yeah, something real quick. I think another thing is that Wilma and Scott don't use, if they're done doing breeding dogs, that they don't rent that area out for someone else to raise dogs there with that special use permit also.
Oh, we won't,
That's-
yeah.
No, right, but it should be in with tonight's decision, and that should be written down also. That only for their use only. Thank you. That's it.
Hey, TAC,
Yeah,
are you keeping track of all of this stuff? I mean, I'm having a hard time figuring out what's in and what's out here.
Edie Marion, our secretary, is doing that. She's keeping the minutes.
Okay,
Can I just suggest that we really need Mr. Skrosky here because this is a
I
continuation
was
of
just
last
looking for his
time.
phone number to give him a call.
Star keys, what she said. Should check this tomorrow. How the hell do I get this? I don't know what to do. I wouldn't do anything. Just say, tell me you're in here, computer's acting up and you have. I'll get back on, just log on the meeting again. Where am I? It's just everyone's quiet. I don't know. We may not know. So whatever. There you go. No fear. No fear.
I can't put my hands on his number. Does anybody else have it?
Who is it we're looking for?
I have it. I'm trying to call him.
Okay, thank you.
Star keys.
4883.
Dogs are quiet, I'm happy.
I'm getting a busy signal. Somebody else must be talking to him.
Allison's trying to reach him, Charlie.
I think you don't have George. Who else was there that at the last meeting? Was there another alternate there that could step in?
So Mr. Swarsky is trying to regain his connection. He did inform me, though, that we have two alternates that were present for the first meeting. So if Mr. Berendoff can lead the meeting from here until Mr. Swarsky gets back.
Well, sure. But doesn't he have to vote? Don't we have the same people who were here last time?
So as long as the alternates were here the first time, then that's fine, because it was just a vote to continue it. They just had to have been present for the entire first meeting.
Okay. Well, I think we've heard from all our abutters. Is that correct, Carol?
No longer see any raised hands, so yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay, then is there anyone on the board who would like to ask questions at this time? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion.
I'd like to have, may we have some discussion amongst the board members, Fred?
Excuse me, Jack?
May we have some discussion amongst the board members in deliberation?
Oh, after you make a motion, we can discuss it for quite some time.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve the special use permit for a commercial kennel, and I have approximately 9 or 10 conditions to that motion, which I'm glad to read slowly to Nancy, or I'll handle it however you wish.
Well, we have to put it on record, Tack, what those conditions are.
Okay, then I'm going to read them slowly. Can everybody hear me? Nancy, can you hear me?
Yep, all set, go ahead.
One, that the dogs not be left outside in the agility area. Again, that's agility, which abuts property to the south without outside supervision of the applicants. You let me know when you're caught up, Nancy.
Okay, I'm good. You can just keep going. If I lose you, I will interrupt.
2, the applicants will erect additional fencing to keep the dogs away from South Shore Road. 3, that the applicants will plant a row of evergreens, probably cypress, approximately 140 feet long, staggered along their boundary with the abutter to the south. Those cypress will be at least 3 feet high. Those cypress will be planted by Memorial Day 2021. 4, that the applicants will plant additional trees between their house and South Shore Road. Again, those will be evergreens at least 3 feet high and planted by Memorial Day next year. 5, the continued use of bark collars for dogs outside will be undertaken by the applicants. They have said that they have 7 or 8, I think. They are going to get down to 8 dogs. I'd like to say that they eventually get 8 bark collars so that every dog will have one if that becomes necessary. 6, that Chad Valcourt be the spokesperson for the abutters. He'll be the individual to be contacted by Mr. Chase, and he will be the one, if necessary, to notify the zoning official of any infractions or violations. Number 7, Wilma will share her cell phone number and email address with Chad Valcourt. And Chad may disseminate that to other interested abutters. Next, number 8, all dogs are personal pets, personal dogs. That means there's no commercial boarding. And if the approval is limited to the applicants, so that when they leave the property, sell the property, the approval terminates at that time. There may also not be any leasing of the property to another commercial kennel owner, to the applicants themselves. Next, number 9, the applicants currently have 11 adult dogs. We'll let them age out, so get down to 8 adult dogs.
Okay, Mr. Eddie, I'm sorry. Mr. Lafrere, I'm not sure if he can mute, but I'm getting some background noise from, I think, himself. So if you could just go back to, they have the 11 adult dogs.
The applicants have 11 adult.
I don't know if they can mute. Thank you.
The applicants have 11 adult dogs at present. They will let them, quote, age out, quote, that's their term. So they're down to 8 adult dogs, and that will be the maximum. In other words, once 3 dogs have moved on, passed on, whatever, 8 will be the maximum adult dogs. And lastly, what I wanted to discuss with the other board members was limiting the number of litters. And so I'll put it in there, and then if the board decides they don't want it, we'll strike it. I'd limit it to 3 litters per annum.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. I think there was 2 other things.
Second? Who said
was
second?
Mr. Ryan, William Ryan.
Bill Ryan. Okay, now motion been made and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion
Yes.
by the board?
Yes.
And I take no pride in authorship, so I'm amenable to any amendments that board members suggest.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, all right. Did you talk about getting a breeder's license?
No, the application is strictly for a commercial kennel. If you think that is a worthy condition, then by all means, we can add that. And maybe it is, because Wilma has stated on the record that they will come and inspect the premises, I believe.
Well, that's what it says there. That's kind of why I asked that question.
Matter of fact, let's go ahead and add that, Herb, as that would be number 11, Nancy, that the applicants will obtain a commercial breeder's license and that the zoning official will inspect the premises at least twice per year. The zoning official being the building official.
That an
Can I
amendment to the
say
motion?
something? Can I say something? I don't know if you all can still hear me.
You're allowed to talk now.
Is it pertinent to this most, this last?
Right. Just about the breeder's license.
Okay,
That is, I'm not sure. He said a commercial breeder's license. I don't think I'm considered a commercial breeder by the state. I'll have to reread. I haven't read it in a long time because wasn't able to get one because I did not have a kennel license. You have to have a kennel license to get a breeder's license. And so I'll read through that, but I believe the state will consider me a hobby breeder.
So why don't we call
Especially,
the
excuse
applicable
me?
breeding license, Wilma?
There we go. That's better. Yeah.
Okay.
TAC, is that an amendment to the motion?
Yes, that would be that was Herb's suggestion. That would be number 11, I believe, Nancy.
So do we have to vote on the amendment?
Allison?
Okay, I do have another question.
Well, right now we have an amendment to the original motion to add an 11th condition. And
Right, but this may be another part of additional amendment or a.
you want to okay, go ahead.
So did we talk about all dogs would be housed inside the house? Or that's, we don't consider that to be. Something that we should put on there. And I'm just reading off the letter. I was checking them off as
Right.
we were going through it.
You're basically saying should we restrict the dogs to be living in the house rather than a separate unit, I assume.
Right, because once you do that, then I would think the barking might start again. I mean, but maybe
Well,
I'm off base here.
Wilma, when they are outside, are they always in what you call the agility area?
No, we have different areas that they're in. The agility area is just a big area towards the front of the property that they can run and they play on the stuff. Usually they're out there supervised, but I had them putting some of them out there unsupervised, just for exercise to run around. But we have, I don't know, 5 or 6 different areas. And then we do have some small pens that we occasionally put them in. Sometimes we feed them in those pens. If like during the summer, if they're outside with us and we're going to feed, we feed them each in a pen. But we do have different areas. But they don't live outside, and they won't live outside, and they don't live in another building.
Right.
They live in our house with us.
Henry, do you want tighter language there that says that the dogs are in the house at night or something, or are you okay with what we've proposed?
She keeps the noise.
I think that's a good portion of why it's not so noisy. I have no problem with putting it in there. If that's the way he's been doing it, we're going to continue to do it, and it's going to go away when she stops doing it, then there's no good reason it shouldn't be there.
Do you accept that as an amendment, TAC?
I suppose it's
Tack.
Oh, no.
Mr. Sawowski is back.
Tack, are you there?
I am.
Okay, that last, he wanted to make that part of the amendment. Do you accept that or not?
The a part being that the dogs be kept in at night.
Yeah?
Well, in the letter, it said all dogs will be housed inside our home. So I don't know if you want to change that wording or not.
So let's make that number 12.
Okay.
Would you read that into the record, Herb? All dogs.
Okay, can we please add to the record, all dogs would be housed inside our home?
Okay, now we have an amendment which adds 2 more conditions. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Ryan seconds it.
We have a second? Yes? All in favor of the amendment, please vote. Now, I guess we have to do that individually. Obviously, Mark is not back, I guess.
Back, but he wasn't here. Mark, you're still on.
Okay, Mr. Case,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
let's see, Mr. Goulart is not there, I guess. Mr. Eddie,
Yes.
that's one.
And you'd move on to Mr. Hall.
And I guess I can vote.
Of course.
So I'll tell yes, and I think that's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think you need one more, Fred.
Need Mr. Hall.
Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Okay, the amendment to the motion is accepted. Now, any discussion or further discussion on the motion? Well, hearing none.
Am I allowed to talk on the motion? Or is this
No.
just between you?
Not really.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask.
No, we have your input and we took it into consideration and put it forth the motion. So for the board now, all in favor of the motion as amended, vote aye.
Aye.
Wait a minute. I had to do it person by person here. Mr. Case,
Aye.
Mr. Ryan,
Aye.
Mr. Stetson,
Aye.
Eddie, Mr. Hall,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye also. So the special use permit with its restrictions is issued.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay.
Okay, so I'm back and move to the second item on the
You're
agenda.
back.
Thank you,
We're ready
Fred.
for the second item now, Mark.
Huh?
May I ask a question, please?
Yes.
This is of course, so it's great that that passed and that's terrific. If Allison in her research finds that it's unenforceable, that we can't apply the condition of continuation or ceasing the continuation upon when Wilma leaves, does this all have to come back before the board?
Allison, you'll have to answer that.
Because I want to be sure that that's part of it. And I want to have some kind of follow-up to make sure that that's completely 100% enforceable.
Yeah, so the board's voted, they've made that part of a condition.
Yeah.
If she should sell in the future and try to pass a special use permit, or the owner or the new owners try to utilize it, that would have to be litigated then. It wouldn't come before the board, it'd be litigated in another court.
Well.
Okay, I'd like to move on. I think we've concluded the first petition. But thanks, Fred. You should hold on. I may lose internet service again because we've been having some trouble down here. The next on the agenda is the petition of 11 Goodrich. And if Tack, if you could read the announcement from the
Petition of 11 Goodrich LLC. Thomas J. Melly, M-E-L-L-Y, manager, owner of the subject property located at 11 and 11A Goodrich Lane, Little Compton, Rhode Island. Assessors Plat 8, Lot 61, seeking special use permits pursuant to section 14-2.4, parens D, and a parens, that's a small d, and I, and section 14-2.5, parens F, and a parens of the Little Compton zoning ordinance. The subject property has 2 legal non-conforming dwellings thereon. Petitioner desires to demolish the smaller dwelling, parentheses, containing a ground floor area of 1,848 square feet, and the parentheses, situated on the easterly side of the lot, and build a new dwelling, parens, containing ground floor area of 1,822 square feet, and the parens thereon.
Thank you very much. And is there a letter from the planning board on this petition?
There is.
If you could read that, that'd be great, or the relevant portions of it.
The relevant section, this letter is dated October 7, 2020. It's addressed to you as chairman. Third paragraph, Attorney Raymond Holland presented the plan on behalf of the applicants who were not in attendance, period. Abutters were present, no abutters were present, nor had any letters of support or objection been received from any abutters. Mr. Cady made a motion that the planning board finds that the approval of the requested special use permits will have no impact on the comprehensive plan, comma, that under NH, that's NH-1.F, which is the new and improved ISDS to be installed, it meets with zoning regulations and complies with the building officials' rules and regulations, period. Motion seconded by Mr. Marinowski. Voting in favor, Mr. Steers, Mr. Cady, Mr. Green, Ms. Sattel, Mr. Marinowski, Mr. Torsia, and Mr. Murphy. Opposed, none. And sincerely, Edith Marion, clerk.
Thank you very much. And I would also note and enter into records, we have a letter from Thomas Melly, who's the managing member of 11 Goodrich Limited Liability. And the letter is to state that Raymond C. Holland Jr. is authorized to represent the 11 Goodrich before the says the planning board and the zoning board of review. So if we could put that into the record somehow, and then I would recognize Mr. Holland to present the application.
Thank you. Am I being heard? I'm just not so sure.
I can hear you.
Okay, all right, fine. Mr. and Mrs. Melly live in Connecticut, and because of the COVID and the traveling restrictions, they're not here. So I have filed, filed with Mrs. Marion. I gave Allison a copy of an affidavit of Mr. Melly, who's the manager of 11 Goodrich LLC, who is the owner of the subject property. The affidavit of Mr. Melly is in essence exactly, for the most part, what the explanation that was attached to the application for the special use permit. 11 Goodrich LLC purchased the property, which is designated as 11A and 11 Goodrich Lane. 11A is the smaller house, 11 is the bigger house. 11A is the subject of this petition. There are 2 houses on one lot that has been determined by the building inspector, Mr. Moore, and also by Mr. Medeiros, that they're 2 legal non-conforming uses because they were there before zoning. The 11A is the subject of this petition, as we said. Sorry? Oh, let me just check it, I'm sorry. 11, I'm sorry, I got them backwards. 11 is the one that's the subject of the petition. This house is approximately 4 feet from the Dawson property, as you can see on Exhibit 1, which was filed with our application, which is a zoning petition that Bill Smith in Civil Engineering prepared. Bill Smith's doing the engineering work for this project because it's bigger than just this house. It's right up against a hedge, and it's an unpleasant thing for the Dawsons who live next door because it's so close. It's been there for years and years and years, but because of the condition of the house, and they want to refurbish it because they've been living here on and off and will be living here more in the future. They want to fix the house up. That this house needs quite a bit of work. When we went to see Mr. Medeiros to get a building permit, he made it clear that, which was correct, there are two non-conforming uses. To do this house right requires that you knock it down and basically move it, which is shown on that Bill Smith drawing, approximately 49 feet to the west. It'll be away from the Dawson boundary line, and it'll be rebuilt. It's all new. In order to do that, when you knock down a non-conforming use,
right,
if you don't get the zoning board of review's permission beforehand by way of a special use permit, you lose the right to rebuild the building. So that's why we're here, is to get the permission basically to move that house by putting a new house that's approximately 26 square feet less than what's there now to the west. And you can, that's shown on Bill Smith's plan. This incorporates also a new septic system and a new well that takes care of all of the problems that come up along with something like this. The new well will service both houses as well. There's another well on the site so that there's plenty of water, and that's not an issue. As I said, there'd be a new septic system. Right now it's serviced by something that's antiquated, and I believe cesspools or something that doesn't conform at this point in time. And Bill can tell you, he'll testify as to what it's going to be. So at this point, basically, his testimony is, as in the affidavit, is that we're going to move it. It will comply with zoning. It'll be farther than the 25-foot setback. It'll be out of Ben Dawson's backyard, and it will be new with a brand new septic system. So that is, in essence, is what Mr. Melly's affidavit says. It also says basically that by doing this, it will not destroy or alter to the detriment of anyone the general character of the neighborhood, or be a problem in complying with the little comprehensive plan. Won't create a nuisance, and it won't be a hazard in the neighborhood. In fact, if anything, it's going to be better because now this building is basically out of Ben Dawson's backyard. And Adolf Hafenraffer will testify on that just for a few minutes as we go along. At this point, I don't have anything else to say, really. The other thing is that the building, one of the concerns we had, the new building will be 24 feet high. It will not exceed 24 feet. That was a question that the building inspector had, because the old building, it was like 24 feet, 7 inches. This one's going to be below the 24 foot. It won't exceed 24 feet, which is a limitation on a second building like this.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Holland? Mr. Hall?
Is the existing well a dug well or a driven well?
It's a dug. It's all right, but Bill can.
Good evening. This is Bill Smith from Civil Engineering Concepts. The existing well is a drilled well.
It is.
Its location is approximately where we're proposing to place the new house. So it has to be relocated. So there will be another well that will be driven or drilled.
So is there a procedure for sealing off that well?
Yes, there is, and the state board of health and DEM will require that be sealed in accordance with their regulations.
Good, thank you.
Brett, Mr. Verdorf.
Yeah, I have a question really of our lawyer there. the special use permit is required to tear down the old house. They're not going to build on a footprint. They're moving it to what I consider basically a better place. But how do we handle that? That's not included in the special use permit.
Well, he had issued a letter to us saying that, and I can make that part of the file, that says this is what we have to do in order to get the building permit for the new house in the new location.
The board may consider 14-2.5F that says when you're rebuilding a non-conforming structure, tearing it down, that you may grant a special use permit to rebuild it. And it can change based on F, so long as it's not more than 50% larger, that there's no greater impact, and that you're not intensifying the use or the non-conforming structure, and there's no change in the use. So
it doesn't say anything about moving it.
it says that in C, and that would be in C. You're not allowed to move it without a special use permit from the board. It's not allowed. But F, it doesn't explicitly say move. No.
Done. Okay. I mean, I certainly think it's a good idea, but I just wanted to make sure that under our zoning ordinances that it was possible to do with just the one.
Yeah, I think you can do it under F, even though it's not explicit. That'd be up to the zoning board to interpret.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else who has a question or comment for
Mark, when
Mr.
you're ready.
Hall? Mr. Eddy?
Bill, Ray just mentioned that the height of the old structure was around 24 feet. The application said 18. Just wondering which was correct.
So bear with me a second.
Bill, can you identify yourself for the court reporter?
Again, this is Bill Smith from Civil Engineering Concepts. Excuse me, the guest house height right now is 18 feet. And the proposed height would be 24 feet, which is allowed for an accessory structure under the Little Compton zoning.
And that'll still be one floor with the widow's walk or whatever it is?
Yes, yes, one floor.
And Bill, are we going from 2 to 3 bedroom?
Yes, we are, Tack. There's really, the way that house is configured, it's like 4 bedrooms. It's a very poorly constructed house, but it's in the tax card, it says 2 bedrooms, but there's more than that, but it's going to end up being 3 bedrooms, and that's what the building permit will be for, and that's what the septic system will be designed for.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Mr. Hall, did you want to introduce Mr. Haffenreffer and have him speak to this?
Please, if I could.
Sure.
Good evening.
I'm not sure. I know we haven't been doing it in the first one because it was continued. Is anybody getting sworn tonight? Have we been swearing people?
If you think so, we probably should. At least identify yourself, Mr. Haffenreffer.
Yeah, I was going to say, without seeing the pictures on the screen with somebody's name, it's hard for me to figure out who's talking when it's just in audio.
Thank you.
Okay. Adolf Haffenreffer, Little Compton Real Estate, Little Compton resident.
Okay. Does anyone? We don't need to swear him, I think.
Okay.
But what does Allison say on that? Are we swearing or not?
I would say not, unless Allison.
I think it's always safer to do so. I'm not sure that's necessary, but
okay, great.
That is the procedure generally.
And we'll do it in the future. Go ahead, Mr. Haffenreffer.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Haffenreffer, could you tell us your occupation, please?
Real estate broker, and owner of Little Compton Real Estate.
Okay, and are you familiar with the Melly property, which is the subject of this petition?
Yes, I am. I had listed the property for the previous owner who sold it to the Melly, so I'm quite familiar with it.
Okay, and have you visited the site?
Yes,
Okay, and have you read the petition
yes, I have.
and the testimony of Mr. Melly?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and could you describe the way the house is located on the lot?
Well, of course, the house that we're referring to is, as Mr. Holland said, is right up against the property line, right into the hedgerow. And quite frankly, it doesn't look like it belongs there. So I think this is going to be a tremendous improvement by, putting the new structure away from that property line.
Is in any way with this new house, so to speak, moved to the west by the 49 feet that is proposed, will that alter adversely the general character of the neighborhood?
No, if anything, it would improve the neighborhood, I think, just by the aesthetics of it.
And will it have any adverse effect on Mr. Dawson's property, who's the closest abutter?
No, it'll have a positive effect on him.
Okay, I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any neighbors present who wish to speak? Okay, if not, do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the special use permit as requested.
And I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Eddy. Motion by Mr. Berndorf. So I'll call the roll. Now, all those in favor, please say aye. Mr. Berndorf,
Yes.
Mr. Case, Herb?
Sorry, on mute. Yes.
Yes, okay. Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Eddy,
Yes.
and then I vote yes as well. So you have your variance. Thanks for coming and going through the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we turn now to the petition from the Corbetts. Tack, if you could read the public announcement or parts that are relevant.
Petition of William T. as in Tango, and Amy L. as in Lima Corbett, owners of the subject property located at 89 Butts Rock Road, Little Compton, Rhode Island, Assessor's Plat 33, Lot 73, seeking side yard variances pursuant to Section 14-4.1 of the Little Compton zoning ordinance. Petitioners desire to construct additions to their existing single-family dwelling. Portions of said additions will be within 17 and 20.1 feet of the northerly lot line. Parens 25 feet is the minimum under the zoning ordinance. End of parens.
Okay, thank you very much. And is there a letter from the planning board on this matter?
There is, I'm digging it out.
Okay, just the relevant parts.
Again, this letter is dated October 7, 2020. It's from the Little Compton Planning Board to you, Mark Sawaski. Attorney Raymond Holland presented the plan on behalf of the applicants who were not in attendance. No abutters were present, nor had any letters of support or objection been received from any abutters. Mr. Holland stated that the Chase Point Homeowners Association had been contacted and had no objection to the proposed plan. The ISDS has been approved by the Department of Environmental Management. After discussion, Mr. Murphy made a motion to approve the plan contingent that it meets Department of Environmental Management requirements. Motion seconded by Mr. Marinowski. Voting in favor, Mr. Steers, Mr. Cady, Mr. Green, Ms. Sattel, Mr. Marinowski, Mr. Torsia, and Mr. Murphy. Opposed, none. A letter will be sent to the zoning board containing the planning board's opinion. Sincerely, Edith Marion, clerk.
Okay, thank you very much. And I see we have an affidavit here from William Corbett and Amy Corbett that was submitted to us in October 14th, and if that could be entered into the record as Exhibit A. And then I'd ask Mr. Holland, are you representing the Corbetts?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Allison? No? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I was getting some back feedback here. I didn't know where it was from. Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I'm just afraid I might knock this thing on the ground. Mr. and Mrs. Corbett purchased this property approximately 6 years ago from Joanne Johnston. It's in 89 Butts Rock Road in Chase Point. It's a single-family dwelling. It's on a lot that's about 55,000 square feet, so it's non-conforming to zoning. The lot slopes from north to south, north being back towards the main road, south being towards the ocean. The house is sort of built into the hill a little bit. The house is built sometime in the 70s, and the affidavit that the Corbetts put together indicated very clearly that it's tired, it needs a lot of repair, a lot of the systems don't work. Mr. Corbett is a professor at Suffolk University, and Mrs. Corbett works for the FAA in Boston. They're on the other side of Boston, so they're not here. They both are working at this point. Plus, again, because of the COVID, they're not down here anymore. They spent a much more time down here in this past 6 months than they had in the past. They have a number of children and grandchildren who come, and they're intent on retiring here and making this their home going forward, to the extent that one of their children has bought a house in Little Compton and lives in the Commons. So it's become the new area for the Corbett family. The house, as it is now, covers approximately 9.5% of the lot. The addition that we want to put on is approximately 9.88. We'll increase it to 9.88%. So it's still less than the 10% under Little Compton zoning. And it was designed that way just so it would conform to zoning and they wouldn't have to get a variance. One of the things that was mentioned by Mr. Murphy from the planning board is that the Corbetts have absolutely no problem conforming to whatever DEM comes back with, if they come back with anything as to septic systems. Mr. Smith will testify that the septic system now, the house has 4 bedrooms. It will have 4 when all is said and done. And the system now conforms. So a new system is not required. If any changes or bells or whistles had to be added, that's not a problem, and there would be an agreement with that. Okay, the addition that they want to make is on the north side of the house, and that is the back side. In other words, that faces, it's called lot 74, which is on the tax map, which is a vacant lot. If you look at the property, and not really enough due diligence was done when they purchased it, I don't think. If you look at where the grass is cut and the lines of occupation, it looks like they've got about 25 feet clearly to the house. Well, when it got time to do all this work, they had Bill Smith go out there and survey it, and it comes back that it's not there. It's not, there's about 8 feet, and it, because of the way the house is located, it's even on an angle. If you look at the plan that we presented, again, the zoning board review plan that Ralph Urban prepared out of Bill Smith's office, you'll see that there's 3 areas that we're talking about on the back side of the house. And on the back side of the house, if you look at the plan, you'll see there are all these trees that are back there. You don't even know, if you look at the plan again, it'll say entry, and then it says proposed addition, 2nd floor only. Well, if you see that step, that's really a door, and nobody even uses it, and nobody has ever used it, and how it got there, God knows. The house was built in sections at various times, and quite frankly, it looks like it. That's going to go away, so to speak, and what they want to do is they want to put an addition on the back. And the addition on the back, that it's kind of hard to explain. The house now, the northerly line of the northerlymost part of the house is approximately 17 to 17 and a half feet from the property line. So what we want to do over that portion of the house is put a second floor. To put a second floor on top of that, because it's in the side yard or the rear yard, side yard, depending on how you look at it, we need a variance for that. To the right of it, if you're looking at the plan, we want to square that off by putting an addition on that's 8 feet by 13. It won't go any closer to the rear line than what's already there. In other words, we're not going to go any closer to our neighbor than we are now. It's just going to square off that back. And it would have a second floor so that over those two sections, it's a second floor, but it doesn't go any closer to the guy in back or the lady in back. The other addition we wanted to put on was approximately a little over 3 feet by 21 feet, which if you look at the house where it says existing 4 bedrooms, it's a long, narrow corridor, part of additions that were put on because the house needs storage. It's built on crawl space, and where the cellar is very little space. It has a garage that's underneath the house. So it looks big, but it isn't. It's a lot of useless, not even a lot of useless space. It's just useless because it's built into the side of the hill. The addition, when you put the second floor on upstairs, will be 27 feet 4 inches, which is less than Little Compton zoning. It's also less than the requirements for the Chase Point restrictions, and the Chase Point people have approved this plan to put this up. We also have some other exhibits, and basically they're photos 2 and 3. Photo 2 that is part of your pile of papers is from the lot behind it. In other words, if you look on the tax map, it would be from the middle of lot 74, looking south at the Corbett house. And on exhibit 2, it says clearly, it points to the Corbett residence. You can just about see the top of the Corbett house from the middle of the field behind. And the exhibit 3 is as you get up closer, if somebody was deciding to build on this lot, you can't even see the roof line because of all the trees and the vegetation that's there. So that by putting on a second floor that doesn't exceed the limits required in the Little Compton zoning, you're not going to be blocking anybody's view or getting in their way because these trees are already there. They've already been there, and you're not even going to see these additions from the lot behind, who's a logical person to see it, because of the trees, they just block it all out. Basically, I'm just trying to look and see here. Well, that's about it. In other words, as far as the testimony is concerned, that we have a structure here that was built very clearly too close to the back line. We didn't build it, we bought it. It's there. The proposal doesn't exceed the lot coverage. It doesn't exceed the lot height, and it does not adversely affect any of the neighbors. All of the neighbors have been notified. None of them have any adverse comments. They don't have any problems with it. And I don't think that the board received any letters from them or any kind of comments, because I talked to most of them myself, and they didn't have any issues at all. So that's where we are. The problem is that they want to live here permanently. And the house, I mean, one or two of the rooms is like 8 by 9.5. It's just, I don't know who planned it. It's just very poorly planned or added onto, and they're trying to make something that it isn't. The 2 bedrooms upstairs allows them to get rid of downstairs. For instance, one of the bedrooms downstairs is on an inside wall. So that's going to become a pantry and a storage area. They're trying to make it more livable and clean it up so that they can stay there all the time. So Mr. Corbett, 70, would like to retire shortly, would like to have his office there. And that's the reason for the variance. So if you have any questions of me, fine. If not, Bill Smith will tell you about the septic, just to make sure everyone's on the same page.
So I have one. So you have spoken specifically to Miss Burgess, who owns the property to the north.
We sent notices to all the people from, I think their name is a Terry Burgess, and they came down and looked at the property. They met the Corbetts out in the field. They walked around it, and they had no objection to it.
Okay.
In fact, one of the things, if you get down this road now, as you go down, you go down Butts Rock Road, you circle left, then you circle right, and then the right goes all the way down. There's a house that's going up there, and then that takes a precipitous drop down, so that the lot behind is in a valley. If anything else, if they built a house that's only 24 feet, it's likely they wouldn't even see this house, never mind anything else. But even if they saw it, it wouldn't block any kind of view, because the new addition that we're asking to build is not going to be any higher than the ridge line that's there now. It's not going to go higher than what's there now.
Did there used to be a house across the street that Mary O'Brien, was her name, who owned? Because it looks like something was torn down. So there's a vacant lot across the street.
I don't know that. I know John Barilick lives across the street. He owns some of the property there.
Okay.
But I don't know where that person is, Mark.
Any other questions for Mr. Holland? All right. Do you want to have Mr. Smith speak?
Yeah, if you could.
Bill Smith.
Good evening. Again, so the property is a 55,000 square foot lot, so it's substandard by the 2-acre zoning. The applicant is looking to put a small addition on several small additions on the property. They'll still stay within the 10% lot coverage, and the 10% lot coverage is a little bit deceiving, in that because there's a stone patio that takes up much of that property, and it's raised. So in talking with the building inspector, he indicated that that's considered building coverage because it's raised on all sides. So the 10% lot coverage it could be a little misleading to you. So I just wanted to clarify that presently there's 2,900 square feet of building itself, habitable living space, and we're proposing to add 166 square feet to that. The existing building is the closest point on that northern property line is 17 feet off of the boundary. None of the proposed work will be any closer than 17 feet. In fact, the closest addition will be 17 and a half. So it's stepped back, or it's set back half a foot from the nearest existing dimension to the northern property line. The septic system, we've done some soil testing on the property in the event that we were needed to do something to the septic system. There is a conformed septic system for the property. We will have to get that reviewed by DEM to make sure that they're satisfied with the proposed work. We're not increasing the number of bedrooms. I don't expect that to be a problem with getting a permit. In the event that DEM has an issue, we certainly have satisfactory soil tests so that we could put in a new system if necessary. There are no wetlands on the property, excuse me, so we don't have to go through any permitting with CRMC. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Smith?
I've got one, I think maybe two. Back Eddie here. Bill, so the height of the existing structure is 22 feet, and this is going to go to 27 feet, 4 inches.
No, Tad.
So the maximum height in Chase Point is 22 feet from the highest
highest grade around the house. This house will have a height of 27 feet 4 inches, but that's measured from the drive-in garage underneath the house. So it looks as though there's going to be a slight increase in the height of the house by 2 or 3 feet from what's there now, but it's fairly minimal, and it will meet the Chase Point requirements, which are more restrictive than the Little Compton zoning requirements. So we'll comply in both cases.
Segued into my second question, which is no small feat. You have the blessing of the neighborhood association?
Yes, we did that first, Pat, because if we didn't do that, there was no sense in even going forward if we didn't get their approval.
With Mr. Barilek as a neighbor, that was a smart move.
This is not on tape, is it, Tack?
You know the history of Chase Point, right?
Geez, no. Amen.
Okay, any further questions? Are there any neighbors present or butters that wish to speak?
No.
Okay. Let me just be clear. So DEM is yet to approve the septic system.
That's
Or
correct. We do have an approved and conformed septic system already for this number of bedrooms. That's not changing. So typically what we'd submit is a suitability determination, and DEM would bless it because it was conformed. We weren't sure, clients weren't sure on number of bedrooms at one point. So we went ahead and did some soil testing just to be on the safe side, or to make sure that we had the ability in the event that a septic system was necessary. I don't believe that it will be.
Okay.
But we have gone the extra step to verify that the soil testing is satisfactory. It's actually pretty good by Little Compton standards.
Okay. Mr. Holland, you want
just a side note, if the board sees fit to grant the petition, we have no objection to having it granted, subject to making sure that it conforms to whatever DEM requirements there are. They're spending an awful lot of money to fix this place, and that's not going to stop it. In other words, they want to have, they don't want to do this again. They're 70 years old. They don't want to be 85 and put in a new septic system if that's what they need. But as of right now, they don't. They've never had any problems with it, and it conforms. But again, going forward at this age, you really want to be thinking about this kind of thing.
Okay.
And Bill, no CRMC issues? There's no drainage ditches running down to the ocean or anything?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion?
If you want, I'd like to just ask Mr. Haffenraffer a few questions.
Oh, he's still up. Didn't know he's still there.
Yeah, no, he sleeps here.
Mr. Haffenraffer.
You've qualified as an expert before, correct?
Yes.
And you've visited the property, you've seen it?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And at my request, did you go and look at it from the point of view of the neighbor to the north
Yes, I did.
and the neighbor to the northwest?
Yes, I did.
Okay. You saw the ridge line and you heard the testimony that that's not going to go any higher than it is.
Right.
Okay. In your opinion, is this adversely in any way going to affect the neighbors to the north or to the northwest?
I don't see how it would, no.
Okay. In fact, can you even see the ridge line from most
All
of
you
it?
see is the trees.
All you see is the trees. Okay. Is it any way going to be detrimental to the neighborhood? Is there any problems that you see adversely affect anybody's values in their property?
No, I can't see that.
Okay. It's not going to alter the characteristic because the use isn't going to change.
Correct.
Okay. I have nothing further, Mr. Haffenraffer.
Okay, any questions for Haffenraffer? Okay, if not, then do we have a motion?
I'll move that the variances be granted as requested, subject to final DEM approval.
I'll second it.
So motion by Mr. Eddy, seconded by Mr. Berndorf, and we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. We'll do it by roll call. So Mr. Berndorf.
Aye.
Mr. Case.
Aye.
Mr. Ryan.
Aye.
Mr. Eddy.
Aye.
And then I vote aye as well. So you have your variance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Have a good night.
You do. Okay, we have one more petition and then a letter from the planning board.
You want to start with the notice?
Yes, please. Thank you.
This is our last petition of the evening, petition of Paris St. Pierre, owner of the subject property located at 9 William Sisson Road, Little Compton, Rhode Island. Tax Assessor's Plat 30, Lot 39-1, requesting a variance pursuant to Section 14-4.1 of the zoning ordinance. Applicant desires to construct a 60-square-foot front porch to an existing single-family residence, which would encroach into the 50-foot minimum front yard depth by 4.75 feet.
Okay, thank you very much. And do we have a letter from the zoning board, from the planning board on this?
We do. The relevant section, again, this letter, Nancy, is dated October 7, 2020. It's addressed to the chairman, Mark Sawaski. The third paragraph reads, Bruce Raposa of BJR, that's BJR Builders, presented the plan on behalf of Ms. St. Pierre, who was not present. It was noted that the application states that it is for Plat 30, Plat 30, Lot 39, and should be corrected to read Plat 30, Lot 39-1. After discussion, Mr. Cady made a motion that has a minimum impact on the comprehensive plan and meets the goals of HC1 point A, which is land use. HC1 point B, protection of historic stone walls and restoration of an older house to keep its historical appearance. Motion seconded by Mr. Marinowski. Voting in favor, Mr. Steers, Mr. Cady, Mr. Green, Ms. Satel, Mr. Marinowski, Mr. Torsia, and Mr. Murphy. Opposed, none. Sincerely, Edith Marion, Clerk.
Thank you again. And we would note that we have a letter here to whom it may concern that Bruce Raposa will be representing Paris St. Pierre at this meeting. And the date of that is September 9th, 2020. So Mr. Raposa, if you want to give us a sense of the petition and what you're requesting.
Well, basically, when I first started renovating that house, I come up, being a very old house, I came across a lot of rot and termite damage that needed to be repaired. When I got to the front wall, it was very bad. I rebuilt that whole front wall from, if you're looking at the house, from the right corner all the way to the right through the foyer, which is the front door where that porch was. So I had no choice but to demo that front porch for starters. But that porch is actually bigger than what I'm proposing putting on, because that porch was roughly about 5 feet off the house. Then I had the steps that went down. It was like 3 steps onto another landing. And that was like 1 step going, then you were on the grass. And that landing was about a 4x4 square landing, also made out of concrete and stone. So basically, I'm asking to put it back, put this porch back too, because right now there's no porch there.
Okay, there's no door there either that's coming, I suppose.
Well, I'm reconditioning an old door that was the original door, and I haven't got it done yet.
Okay.
So that's why that plywood's over that, so for protection.
Okay, and it's been measured that the current house is how far from the road? It's 50 feet?
50 feet, yeah.
And so you're coming out about 6?
No, it's 51 feet.
51, okay.
From the feet.
Coming out about 6 feet.
Yes.
Okay. And now is that to the the setback for the road in the sense that you're not just measuring from the actual asphalt, are you? You're also taking into account the part of the road that's owned by the town or the state as, or did you measure right to the asphalt? It seems fairly close when you stand there.
Well, I'm measuring from, it was measured from the asphalt. And I guess you'd call that a verge, the part that town owns. That's where the stone wall is. I think that's 20 feet. It's huge. I never seen one that big, actually. Usually they're a lot smaller.
That's a good point you're making, Mark. According to the plan by the engineer, he measures right to the edge of the pavement as opposed to the stone wall, which I assume is the lot line.
So I would just note that it does seem fairly close. Are there any other questions here?
One, Mr. Reposa, how long have you been on this project?
I started it in July. I'm doing an intensive reservation on the exterior, new siding, all new windows. I put an addition up. It's a lot of stuff happening. Then I cut the whole roof right off, completely off the house, and rebuilt that because that was all collapsing. I straightened that all out. So it's been time consuming, but it's getting done.
Do you know when the house is built?
Sometime in 1800s. It's old. It's all pegged. All the existing rafters were pegged. And there was another roof built on top of that roof. I actually removed 2 roofs off that house.
Yeah, I think that at that time when it was built, there was no concern about being as far from the road as we now require by zoning. But I think what's proposed will make the house look better.
Definitely with the flat roof and the railings going around that roof. And it'll mimic the flat roof on the addition because that's a deck up there. Because there's a door over there and they need access to get into that door. So it all flow together.
And say again, how large was the pre-existing porch that you had at Debo?
It roughly came off of the house like about 4.5 feet, 5 feet. Then it had the steps. Then I should say the landing. The landing, when you step out the door, you're on the landing. That was like about 4.5 feet off the house. Then you went down like 3 steps, and there was another landing. Then that was that landing was about 5 feet by 5 feet, and that was 1 step to the grass.
Okay. So I mean, essentially, you're just rebuilding what was already there.
Basically, yeah, and I basically what was there too is an eyesore to what I'm doing, and I come across that whole front wall. That whole front wall is totally rebuilt. Well, 3/4 of that wall was rebuilt. The first floor.
Mr.
So
Reposa,
that porch, the existing porch was definitely in the way, and there was a lot of rot, especially around that porch. The way it was built against the house, they just put concrete against wood with no kind of barrier in between concrete and wood.
Mr. Reposa, this was once known as the Winslow Farm. Is your client the daughter of Mrs. Winslow, and is she still running a farm there of sorts?
Yeah, Paris was the niece, I believe.
Wow.
The niece, and she's running. She boards horses there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from the board? Are there any neighbors or abutters present?
None showing up here.
Okay. And the neighbors have been notified, of course.
There's one here that wants to speak.
Wait a second.
Sorry, trying to get my mouse over there.
And if,
Gentleman named David, would you like to speak?
and could you introduce yourself, David?
Certainly, this is David Webb from 15 Williams System, the abutter to the immediate west. And I just wanted to say that we support the petition. A porch on the front of the house would be consistent with its former look and the look of other houses in the neighborhood. And, you know, what's being proposed isn't of any more depth, as we understand it, than what was there before. And there's a lot of nice work being done there. So we just want to say we're supportive of it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Any other discussion from the board? I have to say, we're supposed to measure from what you call the verge, or we don't measure from the asphalt, right?
We measure from the property line, and as I said, in reality, maybe this petition need not even be before us.
From the property line, but that means you measure not just from the asphalt. Property line also has space between the property line and the asphalt, right?
Correct.
So
in any event, it's before us, and I move that the application for variance be granted.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay. And people in favor should signify by saying aye. Mr. Berendorf?
Can I,
Aye.
Allison?
I'm sorry, who seconded the motion?
Mr. Ryan.
Okay. Mr. Berendorf?
Aye.
Mr. Case?
Aye.
Mr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Eddy?
Aye.
Mr. Sawaski, and I say aye with a reservation, but fine. That the plan should be submitted as they're supposed to be submitted with the correct distances. Okay, well, congratulations, you have your variance. Thanks for going through the process.
Thank you. You have a good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We also have a letter from the planning board.
We do. You want me to read it, or can I capsulize it?
You can capsulize it, Tab.
The planning board at their August meeting asked if we would consider requiring applicants in the future to provide additional copies of the applications with supporting documentations so that each member of the planning board would have such. Mr. Cady gave me a call on the matter. I told him we were in the process of revising our rules and regulations, that we had put that on the back burner because of the COVID and because of the tsunami of applications we've received since we got back to work here. So I had in the draft, and I haven't circulated the draft revisions yet, increased the number from 13 to 14. That's 13 packages to 14. So the tax assessor's office would have one. So if we add 9 for the planning board, that brings us up to 23, which I kind of cringe. As you know, many of our applicants are people that don't have counsel. They come hat in hand. But I also understand that the planning board, wants to weigh in and render a considered opinion to us. So I guess from my own personal standpoint, I don't have a problem with the request and making, and when we do revise the regulations, bump it up by 9.
So there would be a change in the fee structure. There'd be, how much would it cost with an additional 9 copies?
Well, it's not going to cost us. We're asking the applicant, rather than submitting 13 or 14 copies, excuse me, to submit 23.
All right, so I'm sure you don't know for sure, but we're talking probably about another $50, $60. Or are we talking much more than that, do you think? $100 more? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
All right.
I mean, it depends, some applications, such as the one we had on Taylor's Lane South there, Ms. Jewell, that had voluminous enclosures. Some have a site plan on the back of a napkin, and that in the application is it.
Yeah, usually you have a pretty extensive paperwork, I think. Is it possible to do less than that number for the planning board and
Well, I was thinking of them, I'm looking at the, where they sit and, having one per two. But then again, I think they probably, subject to Carol confirming, get their packages before the meeting, which they do. So if you don't have one for each, certain members are going to be left out, Mark.
Mhm. Okay, my only concern is the extra burden we put on applicants.
And that's the point I was making, but I don't see a way around it. And I think maybe if you wanted to tinker with it, you could make it so that any plans, anything larger than 8.5 by 11 has to be submitted additionally. In other words, the application is on 8.5 by 11 paper. Edie can make copies of that. Edie, weigh in if you want, if you're listening. But any plans from Civil Engineering Concepts or, Donnie Maderas, whoever it may be, or architectural plans, those be, additional copies be submitted.
Anything larger than 11 by 17.
Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Do we have anything for next month, Mark?
I don't know of anything. Tack, do you?
Knock on wood, not yet.
Oh, I'm knocking.
Okay.
No, there's going to be no meetings in November.
Terrific.
Great.
We hope.
So what's your pleasure here, as Jane Cavey used to always say, in terms of the planning board request? Do we accept it? Do we have to vote on it?
I think they would like to know how we weigh in. I don't think a vote's necessary, but
So
it's our sister board. They look at each application. So I guess I would honor the request to have 9 additional copies.
does anyone object? So we can say that we were agreed.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Have a motion to, if that's enough, people are satisfied with that, motion to adjourn.
I'll move. Shall we adjourn?
Moved by Mr. Berndorf, seconded by Mr. Hall, enthusiastically, and we'll hopefully see you, we'll see you till December.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody. I'm sorry I had this computer problem, but oh well.
Good night, all.
Night.
Okay, good night.
Bye.
Night.
A lot of work the last 2 months.